Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Grubby's Warcraft 3 Commentaries. This time it's going to be episode 7 of season 2. And once again, this season and this episode is presented to you by BenQ gaming monitors, the leading gaming monitor brand, and you can also check them out on Twitter at BenQ Gaming and at their website gaming.benq.com. So, once again, without further ado, I'm going to present to you the players of this game. It's going to be myself, Grubby, versus Todd, who was my teammate back then, and who is also still a good friend to this day. You may also recognize him from his commentating in Heroes of the Storm, a game that we both play at this day. Alright, where are we? We are in China, in Qingdao, a city in China, and the tournament is the World eSports Festival, or WEF. Todd is playing his trusty humans, and myself, I'm not playing Orc for once. So how did this come to be? I'm actually playing the Undead Scourge. In a RTS, obviously, you're always playing a main race which you are most comfortable with. But every now and then, if you can play another race well enough, there might be a set of circumstances that is just perfect for you to crawl into the skin of one of the other races. Well, I'm just trying to jam a coin so that... trying to jam a coin at the Alt key so that we can see the HP the rest of the game. Alright, success. So, the situation was that, you know, it's standard that sometimes a race will have more difficulty against another race at a certain map. And the way that is usually balanced out is by playing best of 3s or best of 5s and both eliminating, so to say, vetoing one of the maps, the one that you feel most uncomfortable on. In this case, I assume that Todd removed Twisted Meadows and I removed Echo Isles, or vice versa. I don't remember exactly, but we did play a best of 3. Now, the first game that we played, Todd already won it. It was Human versus Orc on Gnoll Wood, close positions. I went for Blade Master Shadowhunter and Double Bestiary Mass Raiders, and he went Archmage Beastmaster with pressure, and he started to tower rush me eventually. He did a good early game. He got Sentry Wards. That was still an item back in 2006 when that was played at one of the camps. And yeah, he beat me there. So a little bit of background. How did I come to be playing Undead here? Now, I found it difficult to play Orc versus Human on Turtle Rock. It is a very close corner map, lots of tight spaces where it's difficult to assail the human if he sets up a tower rush position. But at the same time, I had been looking with interest at the games of Undead versus Human that had been played recently in the months leading up to this match. Stealing a water elemental there, getting 30 or 42 XP or so. Let's see, 42 XP. And in the meantime, I'm using some Rod of Necromancy with ghouls to creep another camp. And this is going to give me level 2. Now, and I've been looking at... in this time I checked almost every single replay that was out for Warcraft 3, even if it didn't involve my own race. And I saw that humans were properly struggling with Undead players. You know about the metagame. You're watching this, you've probably played loads of Warcraft 3 yourself. Maybe other games as well. And you may be familiar with the way that strategies keep shifting in and out of the popularity, in and out of the trends. And during this time, it was very usual for humans to play tier 3 on Turtle Rock, single base against Undead. Now, as an inexperienced Undead player, it's the race that I played the least during all of my practice games and fun games. I had the most difficulty playing against humans who played expansion style. But against tier 3, I found this such a weak strategy from human that I felt like the trend, the meta, really favored me, because the way to counter it was mass destroyers. Now, for some reason, a lot of Undead players weren't doing it. You could say that they were kind of trapped in a microcosm of their own making. Both the Undead and the human players in Europe and America, and even in Asia to a degree, they were all playing a kind of game that I didn't understand why they were doing it that way. It didn't seem good to me. But that was good for me, because it meant that I could circumvent the necessity of playing Orc versus Human on this map, while at the same time playing Undead versus Human. And one of the tricks that I had as Undead player was to go for this camp really rather fast, which is going to give me level 3. Now I started with this, and he actually has Lightning Shield. He starts casting it, putting so much area of effect damage on me, and doing a very nice body block on my Death Knight, really driving me out of this camp. So I only got the 2 level 4s, and I lose a ghoul as well. Now the fight for this level 7 turtle is on. He happily makes use of it, does a surround. I use a little bit more the Lightning Shielded ghoul to do some damage to his footman, and I start coming here. Now these skeletons are key. My Death Knight is too low in HP to actually combat this turtle level 7, trying to steal it. So I actually use Cloak of Shadows, normally an instant sell item for 50 gold because it's almost useless. But I was able to set up camp here to go harass it. But I need the skeletons for vision. We both know the game we're playing at here. 75 mana is what I need to steal it. Now he's going to try and set up a rough surround on my position. Even though I was invisible, if he surrounds me and then buys a Dust of Appearance, he would be stealing it from me. Now, I keep trying to circle around here, but he's zoning out with his Archmage where I am. And I'm losing the last skeleton vision. So at this moment, I lost vision, practically. Now he's coming back in. I turn around the other side, and I just get it in time. I steal the XP, the 58 gold, and that's a pretty big win for me. Now, backtracking again to the matchup and how to use Undead versus Human on this map. Since I knew that humans like to go for Knights and Griffin Riders, all I had to do was make Mass Destroyers and they would not be counted by what Human had. But is that going to be enough in a game? Can you just, let's say, abuse a unit, abuse a map to win the game? It's not that simple. You're still going up against one of the most experienced human players in Europe, with a race that you're not very familiar with. So in order to... I'm actually getting 2 footmen surrounds here. It's not that easy to pull off because you need a... It's a very small hitbox, the footman, but that was kind of nice. Now that kind of thing wouldn't have happened if I simply played Undead and went to make Mass Destroyers. So this kind of thing, the steals here, the steal on the Water Elemental, the surrounds on the footman, that came from long practice. Now, I was quite the no-lifer in my day, and I might say I still play a lot of games in my life. And I actually found the time to practice at least 250 games of Undead on the ladder. And that's many weeks of practice just playing Undead purely and alone. To one time, in one big important tournament, choose Undead once against Human in one of the matches. Just once, one single map, only Turtle Rock, only Undead versus Human. Only if I met humans in the tournament. A very big investment for a potentially small payoff. But again, if it works, it is going to be a big payoff because these kind of tournaments matter. We were playing for 6,000 euros first place prize. Now, he was a teammate. How did people always wonder, how much do you practice with your teammates actually? And how much do you just discuss the game, or do you not practice? Do you just play the ladder? We didn't play a lot actually, Todd and I, besides the fact that we were teammates, which meant that we were being paid by the same organization basically, and we didn't do all that much practice together because you have to remember, we also were each other's biggest rivals to a degree. We were rivaling for the top spot in Europe, all the qualifiers, all the major tournaments were meeting each other. So it's kind of awkward, even as teammates, to share every single intricate little detail and secret that you have. Nonetheless, I did tell Todd that I was practicing Undead versus Human, and I asked him for practice and he agreed, and we played on Turtle Rock because I shared everything. He was the only person that I told that I'm practicing Undead versus Human on this map, and he tried a fast expansion in that practice game, and I remember me stopping it with Ghoul attack, Death Knights and Ghoul attack, and he said, Undeads never attack with ghouls. This is unrepresentative. Not good practice. So I did say I am going to use this in tournament if we meet, and I remember him still being quite surprised that I pulled it out at WF Qingdao, which of course I guess feels bad for him, man, but for me it was a serious matter. And so this is a game where everything is at stake, and I am so far having quite a good success with my Undead play against him. Now I've seen that he's going for tier 3 and is setting up guard towers because he's not planning to make any anti-air units that can attack without a magic attack. Of course, destroyers are magic immune, so griffins cannot even attack them at all. And unless he buys Orb of Fire or Mountain King, the only thing that can attack air is Water Elemental and Archmage. Now, as I said, when you go into a tournament, you don't just want to use the units that you have and to attack when you want to attack. It's not good enough to just play standard, as it were. I find that when you approach a professional competition, any match where both players kind of know what the other is going to do, it is very important to have what I call 1 to 2 tricks per game. It doesn't have to be anything super special, but you need to not just have some surprises because it's harder to counter, but you want to basically have some surprises to show that your opponent is in for a tough match. And when you have things that surprise the opponent, he feels like you're well prepared. And that is a mental blow, if anything. So, one of the things that I had was to go for all these level 7 camps, to get very high consumable items like greater heal, greater invulnerability, and to use that for a big power spike early on. Starting to move here, getting his Mountain King, bit of a mistake there, didn't use Staff of Sanctuary, and I am basically moving in for the kill. Already weaving in Crypt Fiends to web his Griffins down. We're gonna go attack him here. Now I'm getting some damage on him. He's gonna use Staff of Sanctuary before using Heal Pot, but that just puts him in a single place where he will regenerate slowly, unmovable until he gets dispelled. And I wasn't gonna dispel him with my destroyers. That would mean the Paladin is mobile again. I'm just keeping the pressure on here and going to have my web soon for the Crypt Fiend. Now, a lot of Undead players in this case, they would be going for attack upgrades, going over 50 food, but I think I've been one of the players who most favors staying at 50 food or less, a real greed as it were, so that you stay in no upkeep and you don't start losing 3 out of every 10 gold that you collect, the 30% income tax of being in low upkeep. So instead I'm going to take an expansion. At this time, he's going to think of how to counter my destroyers. Eventually, he would like to make a blacksmith and a workshop and start to counter them, maybe with siege engines or flying machines. Now, flying machines are easy to kill and they're pretty weak, but if you get a critical number, you can evaporate destroyers so quickly. But you need that critical number. Without it, they're going to be quite poor against destroyers. So, using this time that he needs to basically form a counter, I'm going to take an expansion. Now, normally Undead expansions are not very popular, because the acolytes are so exposed, it's easy to harass for a pretty small investment. I'm gonna suck the mana from these 2 statues, and then I did that, and I got lots of magic on my destroyers now, which is gonna do the Orb of Annihilation, magic splash damage, and then I will turn them into destroyers as well. So normally it's easy to harass, but because you have the counter to his units right now, you can take that expansion. And that's pretty much game theory for RTSs. You try to counter the opponent's units, and then if you do, they need time to recounter yours, and you use that to get advantages. In WarCraft 3, that means either taking aggressive creep camps, which are near his base. So you take the camps that are near his, quote unquote, that belong to him, and you provide a sort of stranglehold around him. Or you take expansions, or in my particular case, both. Let's say you have a standard creep pattern. You do this turtle camp, then this one, then you do this camp. That has to change if you're winning the game. You need to very aggressively creep around him to force engagements. He feels like I'm eating the cheese off of his bread. He doesn't want to get robbed, so he comes to harass. And that's exactly what I want, because I already have a web on my Crypt Fiends. I went over 50 food, which I can afford because my expansion is finished. So I'm getting 14 gold per second and he's getting only 10. And basically I want an engagement here, but I don't want it to be in his base. And that's why you start aggressively creeping. Now I'm taking all that, there's not much he can do about it. And he says to himself, let's go for a big camp. At this point he's pretty desperate and he needs to make something happen. He would like to get a very good item here. Maybe even, what's the dark orb called again? The orb that makes skeletons. And that makes you be able to attack air as well. I forgot what it's called, but normally that's a pretty crappy item and an instant 400 gold sale. But in this particular case, it would kind of help. Myrddin would suddenly be able to attack into the air, the Mountain King that is. It's actually called Argonor the Mighty. And that would help a little bit by with attacking the destroyers. But basically his game plan is, and the reason that he keeps making Griffin Riders, focus a hero down. Stormbolt, Holy Light, attack it with Griffins, attack it with Knights, and ignore the destroyers basically. And another thing that Todd would like to do is not to attack my, not to have my destroyers fighting him if I have magic on them, if I have mana on them. They have a pretty decent magic damage, 19 to 21, which doubles up against heavy armor. But as long as they don't have mana from sucking water elementals, or from taking away buffs or debuffs, destroyers aren't as bad. Now I did realize, a bit too late perhaps, hey, I can actually attack his units without my army being there. It's not actually that risky at all. He doesn't have the counter yet. He's working on it by making flying machines with flak cannon upgrade. But my destroyers can pretty much go in here with impunity. So I'm starting to consider attacking his tower while I'm getting more and more camps, getting a level 5 Death Knight and a Lich, attacking his guard tower, but suddenly I see flying machines. Now I don't know how many he has. An accurate assessment of the timings would kind of indicate that he probably doesn't have more than 3 to 7, which is not a risk. But what if he actually had 10 already, or 15? That could just mean losing very expensive destroyers. Now I'm having my expansion finished, I have 80 food, and I'm even starting to weave in abominations. Abominations are going to get countered by Griffin Riders, because they take double damage from Griffins as well. But they form a kind of important wall to prevent my Death Knight from being completely surrounded by his Knights. Knights have quite a high movement speed, and they can easily surround Death Knight just by attack moving on him. And then that is pretty much the risk for me. I'm starting to move in here, eating his water elemental, we're going to have a big fight. And starting to do a lot of damage on this Griffin, slowing them down with Frost Nova. Keep kiting backwards because I've got more units coming in. And he's going to just focus my Death Knight. That's pretty much the gambit that he has here. And I'm going to take no risks at all. Immediate greater heal just to make sure I don't get locked into a stun lock. I mean, this is a very comfortable position for me. I'm going to try and death coil my destroyers. That one is going to die. All his Griffins are webbed. And it's pretty much just like, yeah, damn. This looks freaking easy, so can you understand why I wanted to play Undead versus Human? It was just a momentary meta strategy of madness where humans thought that they could play the style, and I happily made use of it. But again, I practiced a lot for this. I had a Smurf account called Rumpsteak, and I played hundreds of games of only Undead, even against every race. And I got pretty decent at Undead in that time. Team MYM, they came to Europe for a while to bootcamp and practice. And I remember meeting Caesarea and Lucifer and Storm all on the ladder. And they didn't know who I was, but I had a perfect 100% record against all of them with my Undead. Because I was quite practiced and also quite a different style, I guess, than maybe they were used to. So it was going quite well. And a funny little Undead adventure for me in that practice era, practice time. Now there was one more challenge here. The first one, as I already mentioned, the first map of the best of 3 of the grand finals of WF Qingdao, Todd won it. It was the Gnoll Wood game, and I'm not going to show it in its entirety, but this game he won it. I was positioned right here and he was there, and there was a mana fountain, and I kept trying to make use of it, but he had a sentry ward here, he had a sentry ward here, and it was very difficult for me. He played really well, good harass, killed a grunt, kept cancelling my healing salves, and he just kept the pressure on non-stop, was able to finish me off. Now there was one question. The last map was Tarina Stan, and the problem was, I didn't like it with Undead or with Orc. So which race was I going to pick for last? Looking back at the best of 3, it was the decisive map, it was the title map, the rubber match as it were. And I had won once with Undead, 1-0, and I had lost once with Orc, 0-1. So which race was I going to play for the final game? And in the end I decided, okay, I can't get boggled down in statistics and say, just because I won with Undead, that means I should play it again. Because I felt this was a better map for expansions for Human, and so I would have to play a completely different ball game. He would be more prepared as well. So let's fall back to my standard. But what exactly happened in this game, maybe we will see next episode. Because this was going to be all for this episode of Grubby's WarCraft 3 commentaries. I hope you enjoyed that one, a little bit different than some of the other ones. And maybe for the next episode, I'll do this one. Or maybe one of these other lovely replays that I have here. Thanks very much for watching this one. It was once again made possible to you by BenQ Gaming Monitors. Please check them out and show them some support on Twitter at BenQ Gaming and or in the YouTube comment section. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you had fun, and I'll see you guys for the next episode. See ya.